I love working with theatrical people because they know how to put on an act for me. But a lot of times with people, just kind of normalish sort of people.
This photography podcast is brought to you by Frames, the upcoming printed photography magazine. Here is your today's host, W. Scott Olsen, with another fascinating conversation.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast from Frames Magazine. My name is Scott Olsen, and today I have the real honor and the real pleasure of talking with a member of the Frames community, Gary Beeber. Gary's work is most recently known to those of us on the Frames website for a shot called Moonlight of a pool slide. But his work goes well beyond all of that. His films have been featured in more than 85 film festivals. His photographs are collected by Fortune 500 companies and shown in galleries all around the world. He is a photographer of immense breadth and really interesting depth to the content. Gary, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. And man, that was a great intro. You want to work for me?
I'll make my next career of just writing intros for people. How about that? I want to start with the picture that most people at Frames will know you by, and that is the picture Moonlight. Now, I got to tell you, I'm a Midwestern kid. I'm a suburban kid. I was born in Kansas City, grew up in Chicago. That pool slide is as iconic for me as it is for anyone else. And when I first saw it, I was really struck. So tell me the story of that picture. How did it come to be?
Well, this is part of a big series. And every night possible, I go out and I photograph the slide. And the slide, we moved here 3 years ago. And the first thing I saw, I hadn't seen it because I didn't actually see the house. But the first thing I saw was that pool slide. And that was the first thing I wanted to get rid of. I thought it was really tacky. And so... Well, strangely enough, one night, for the hell of it, I took a picture of it, and it was just for the hell of it, I posted it on Facebook, not knowing what the response would be, and the response was huge. It was the biggest response I had ever gotten up till that time. And
were people responding to their own memories of pool slides, or to the quality of the image, or what was the response about?
Well, the quality of the image was not fantastic because I took it with my cell phone. I'm apt to do that too. But I think people responded. I always think people respond to a picture because it says something to them. Maybe it brings back their childhood memories or whatever. But in any event, what I do is I go out all the time and it's there. For me, it's right there, and it changes all the time. I started to just love it, and I started to see it as an art object. I started to see it as a sculpture, and it changes in all times of year, all times of day, and I just really. I don't know. There's something about it. I think it symbolizes for me suburbia. And
well, I was going to ask about the title there. Why did you call it suburbia versus pool slide versus aquavite versus anything else?
I think because to me it just symbolizes living in suburbia. It doesn't. I don't know that they even really make pool slides like that anymore. I don't know. Maybe they do. But I just saw it as something, why does it symbolize that? I mean, that's just like Americana. I mean, and that's what I liked about it.
I should tell people who are listening that you can see this image on the Frames website. You can also go to Gary's own website, garybeeber.com, and see it as part of the Suburbia series. It's a very simple slide. It's got a slight bend to the left as you come down, but it's not one of these contemporary, overly complicated deals. It's very flowing, very graceful.
Well, if I may, I didn't do all that. I use Photoshop, obviously, but I really didn't do all that much with that image. With that image, I did use some lighting, and I got kind of a yellowish lighting on that. And it just so happens, like a couple of times a year, you get the moon in that position. Usually, there's nothing except clouds sometimes that's over that slide. And I just got it at the right position, and I shot it. I probably shot, I don't know, 100 pictures like that night. And I really didn't have to do all that much to it. I mean, a lot of times I'll use duotone because I love that. But I just did it as pretty much a straight-on color shot.
And you lucked out for the lighting and everything else on that shot. Several of the others in the series obviously have a great deal of post-processing in them. Tell me how you decide what an image is going to finally be. Do you sit down and just play with it, or do you have an idea when you start?
I think a lot of the time I don't even see the image when I photograph it as color. I use a digital camera and it's going to be color. But I don't see it that way. I see it and I think about it as it would be as duotone. Why do I like duotone? I'm a big fan, and I have been for a long time, of the French photographer Eugene Atget. And I love the colors of this guy. I think this guy was way, way ahead of his time. And I don't believe that he was even looked at as an artist while he was taking these pictures. The pictures that he took were mostly to record Paris at the time. And so I don't know that he also sold pictures to artists who wanted to use his pictures that they could paint from. So he was a big influence on me, and I love his color, and I love his imagery. And I think the imagery that I'm doing, he would never have done. He probably would think I'm crazy. But I don't know. I just like to use it for my imagery.
Well, it is a remarkable series because it's a study of one object. It is everything from elegant and beautiful to a little bit haunting sometimes. A couple of the pictures I could see being in something like Twin Peaks. Just lovely, lovely work. This is not, of course, the beginning and ending of the work that you do. So take us, if you would, back to the very beginning. How in the world did you get into filmmaking and into photography? Do you remember your first camera, your first shots, and some early successes?
Oh, when I was a little kid, my parents gave me some little toy camera. I must have been, I don't know, 10 years old. And I had always been an artist. And I started fooling around with the camera, and I've never actually stopped. I had done pretty well with my work over the years. I've been in a lot of art fairs. I have quite a few solo shows. I've had my work shown. I'm in several collections. I've had my work shown in galleries and museums all over the world, actually. And I was in, God, this has to go back to when digital video first came out. I was in an art fair. It was a digital art fair. It was called Diva. It was in New York City at a hotel. And I saw what people were doing with video, and I became very, very interested in that. So I got myself one of the first digital video cameras, and what I started doing with it was I started making these little art movies that were like a minute or 2 minutes of various things, like the rides at Coney Island, which I've always loved. And I started trying to show these at galleries, but what happened was the galleries didn't really want it, but I found out that film festivals really wanted it. And so that led me to do more and more, get more and more into documentary filmmaking. And so I made several documentaries. I have a few that are out right now. And also with photography, I got sidetracked for about 3 years. I produced an off-Broadway show at the Triad Theater in New York City, and it was called Gotham Burlesque. And I was like a curator because I would curate all the acts. So the acts would change every month. So I was, in a sense, a curator. And I started getting kind of tired of it because all I was doing was promoting other artists. Now, these burlesque people were people that were modern burlesque came from modern dance and also theater pieces. And so these people were essentially artists. And it just started making me want to get back into my own work. And it made me want to really start photographing people. And I started doing that. And it really started again for me because I had done well in the 90s with galleries. But I never really did people. And there was a woman who came to the show one night, and I thought there was something very strange about her. I mean, I didn't know really whether she was a man or a woman. And I don't care. But my stage manager was in that scene in New York. And I asked him, and he thought it was definitely a woman. Now, this woman, her name was Mona Marlowe. And she transgender, it turned out. And she had written me because she wanted to know if she could be in the show. Well, I told her to send me a video or something. And what she did really didn't fit into what I was doing. And but I kept in touch with her, and she would come and see the show every now and then. And one time, when I always thought about her, and I thought it would be interesting to get back into photography because before her, I always took pictures of things and details of things. But I just, on a whim, when Gotham Burlesque finished, I contacted her and I said, well, you think we could do a photo shoot? I'd be interested in doing your portrait. And she was very much up for that. And I remember there was a snowstorm that day, and I went to her tiny little room. She was living in a room, and it was in one of those SRO buildings that's in the theater district. And I started shooting her, and that went on not every day in a year, but several times during the year I did sessions with her. So that made me really get back into photography and photographing people.
Now, I should tell people, Gary, that I don't know if these are the pictures you're talking about, but on your website there is a whole series of pictures of her.
Yeah,
very Marilyn Monroe-ish, very elegant, and in a setting that is very much, I think, out of the burlesque aesthetic. So,
well, I think that what I got out of it, really, it shows me what somebody who wants to really follow their dream, how much they're willing to sacrifice. And I think that has to be the same with all artists, that there's a certain amount of sacrifice. Nobody, unless you're a genius and you bump into the right person, nobody in the art world is going to do anything for you. And you have to really be able to sacrifice a lot sometimes. She was living in this tiny room with just the faucet. There was a bathroom, a shared bathroom in the hallway, And I came back several times, and looking at my pictures online or looking at the pictures, it looks like, well, this is kind of a big space. But when I came back, I was so shocked at how small it was. I mean, it was really mind blowing. But then once again, it shows you what somebody who's really into what they want to do, what they'll commit to be able to live that dream.
Tell me a little bit about your interest in, I don't have a good word for it here, but in things that are a bit extravagant or over the top. I'm looking at your series here again on your website called Portraits. And, these are not a series of accountants in gray suits. These are all people who are extraordinary in one sense or another. Is it the sense of drama? Is it the sense of rule breaking, perhaps? What is it that attracts you to the people that wound up in your Portraits series?
I think ever since I was a kid, I was attracted to people that were kind of eccentric or a bit over the top. And I suppose I have an affinity for Diane Arbus. I always admired her work. And I think with Diane Arbus, that these people are not so much Diane Arbus. I think that my personality people maybe go back to Diane Arbus more. A lot of these people in the portrait series are just people that are a little eccentric, or they might seem a little odd to other people. And I always find that there are a lot of people who I want to photograph who don't want to be photographed. I had that experience in Morocco last summer. But a lot of people that I photograph, I love working with theatrical people because they know how to put on an act for me. But a lot of times with people, just kind of normalish sort of people, they get into it, and I try to get into their head, and I try to get them to be loose with me. And I don't believe that I'm showing people as freaks. I'm trying to show some humanity, although I don't know what you would think or the audience would think. But that's what I think. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that showing humanity and showing the story leads me again to the film that's making a bit of a mark for itself right now, Insectivora, if I pronounce that right. I guess just got selected at Venice Shorts to be screened there. This is about a Coney Island fire eater. How in the world did you wind up doing a short film about a Coney Island fire eater?
Well, like I said, I've always been kind of attracted to people. When I was a kid, I used to love to go to, at the time they had these underground movies that would be like at midnight, and I love those movies. And I guess they had an influence on me, and I just love to find interesting people that I can tell a story about. And in Insectivora, I started going to Coney Island a long time ago just to take still photographs of things. And, I got a little more friendly, and I started going to their benefit. And Insectivora was one of the acts that was performing at the benefit. And I talked to her, and she thought it was really good to do the film, so we did the film. I met other people through Coney Island that I did films of also, like Scott Baker. Scott Baker was the outside talker. I did a film called Bally Master with him. And what the outside talker is, some people refer to an outside talker as a barker.
Right.
But apparently outside talkers don't like to be called a barker. And what an outside talker does is he stands outside and he draws people into the freak show by doing all kinds of bizarre routines and acts with a microphone out front. And so I did a movie of Scott called Bally Master. And Scott will do things, and he really does these things, like drive a nail up his nose. And it's a real nail. And I got him just doing all of his tricks, like eating glass. And I don't know. I just love to watch that kind of stuff. You think I'm nuts? I don't know.
Well, no, there is a certain drama to the extraordinary. There's always that kind of interest. But your work, I mean, if you were to show me the Sad Brides series and put that next to portraits, I would not say it was the same artist. Tell me about the Sad Brides.
There's a farm. There's an organic farm not very far from where I live. And what they do is they grow dahlias. Last year they couldn't do it because the weather was so bad. I don't think they're able to do it this year either. But when they grow these dahlias, it's really bizarre because they put these coverings, these like little like silken mesh coverings over each flower so that the flowers are protected from birds and animals. And I just thought that I just thought that it was beautiful in a way. And I only saw these, they're in color, but I only saw these as duotone. And so I did a whole series, and I was posting on Facebook, and some friend of mine in Italy said they remind me of Sad Brides. I started thinking, yeah, they kind of do, because they do look like a bride in a way.
So, I am amazed because I did not know that about the nursery putting the coverings over the flowers. I had assumed, looking at the pictures, that you had done that.
Can you imagine the time it would take and the love and the care it would take to do that to 1,000? Do that to 1,000 flowers.
That is remarkable. And again, I should tell people who don't have the benefit of the image in front of them. These are museum-esque portraits. Dark backgrounds.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
The really, really elegant pictures. One other of your series, the one on passages, is about things that are decaying, old buildings, that kind of stuff. I've noticed that you've said somewhere that curiosity is one of your driving forces. Would nostalgia also be something that drives your interest?
I think it would. I think that what it's more about is the passage of time. And I think even with the dahlias, there's an element of, it's about the passage of time. I mean, you've got a flower that'll start out from a seed, and it'll eventually die. So I just happened to catch the dahlias at a certain time. I have some pictures where they're dead too, but I think the whole thing is just about time moving on. You look at some of the things. There could be a little nostalgia because there's one picture of Sears, what's left of the Sears building, and just the shadow of what was the signage, and that was a mall. It was a very, very popular mall, and it had a lot of exclusive stores in it. It was one of the first malls in Dayton, Ohio, where I'm from. And I mean, now that's all that's left of it. Everything's been torn down. So I kind of figure that's kind of like a life cycle as well, and a passage of time. And I don't know. That's something that really interests me as an artist.
Well, a lot of these images are, for me, quite profound because of that passage of time. And there's always that vague feeling of want to recollect what's past. You see the Sears and you sort of want Sears back. There's a beautiful old home that's only like 3/4 there. It's got some columns out front, and I would argue
that place is beautiful. It's awesomely beautiful. And I also take these pictures because I wonder about what the story is. And I'm trying in a way to give that image a story, or I'm trying to make people wonder about it and maybe come up with their own story. Every picture has a different meaning. To if I showed 10 different people one image, 10 different people would have 10 different responses. Some wouldn't like it. Some would like it very much. Some it would remind them of something.
You know, a response to any image is driven, not only by the photographer's artistic intent, but obviously by the viewer's background and history and attitudes and all that. With that picture of the house in the columns, with like so many others, I would argue there is always a second image in the back of our head of what that house may have looked like at some other point. And so the power comes not only from the image that's put in front of us, but a kind of imagined answer to the image as well.
Well, I'm really thinking about what the people were like that lived there. I mean, you have to realize that I later found out that this was a farm of a very wealthy farmer that was established probably in the late 1800s. And they, I think they grew fruit there. It was like a fruit farm. But it was massive, and they had a lot of land. And this was handed down from generation to generation. There you go, passage of time. And the last person that was living there was actually a hermit. And I guess he let the place run down, and then one day there was a fire, and it burnt down. So it's just strange to me and interesting. Also, I'm interested in things that were created for one thing, but are used for something else now.
That's amazing stuff. Tell me a little bit. I want to switch topics here just a little bit because I know people are always interested in this. On the technical side, when you go out shooting, do you carry a bunch of lights with you? What's your standard? I'm going out to do some work kit.
When I do people, I like to take some lighting with me, and I'll take a few spots with me. But when I go out into the field and take pictures, I like natural light. Now I can adjust the camera a bit to get more light in the image, but I especially, you look at somebody like Eugene J. I mean, he just had the camera. He didn't have any lighting. It was a big camera, a heavy camera that he had to carry, and that was all he took with him. This guy they didn't have lighting at that time. And I just think that you can get some very touching, very moving shots using natural light. I would rather use natural light, and I would rather go on a day when the sun isn't really intense. I like cloudy days, and because I think there's a quality about it, and that's what I like to do. I don't like intense light. It just burns out everything. And also, I'm thinking with the duotones that I think it's really funny, but I think they have more power than color. I think that all the images that I do in duotone wouldn't have as much power if they were in color. They might look very contemporary, or they might look like nothing. But with the duotone, I think it adds sort of history to, not really history, but I think there's something very moving about it that I can't get with color. Now, sometimes color really works.
Mm-hmm. I mean, color for your people is obviously the preference there. The duotone for your landscapes and the rest, I think, is a really powerful choice there, as you said.
I think as an artist, you have to go with your gut. I mean, some things you're gonna it's got this red area in it or something, and so you gotta. I don't know. I just think that you have to go with your gut, And if you think it looks better in color, you should do it in color. And maybe that's your thing, color. I don't know.
Do you spend a lot of time, arguing that decision with yourself when you're sitting at the computer?
Not at all. I mean,
Really?
like I said before, a lot of times when I go out and shoot, even though I'm looking at it in color, I'm thinking of it and how it'll be in duotone or black and white.
We're operating in very strange times these days with the virus and stuff. I know a lot of photographers have lost substantial parts, if not all, of their income because of it. And a lot of us have been forced to shoot things that we've never thought of shooting before. Has the virus changed your photographic, filmmaking, and artistic life?
Well, I'm not going to go and into a crowd right now and do. Of course, most of my things aren't. I don't have a crowd. I don't have a lot of people around, but you have to be very careful. But I think this for me has been an amazing time. Number one, because, well, first of all, I'm already like quarantined. I've always been in my studio. I spend an awful lot of time in my studio anyway. And I think that this is a good time for photographers and that they can really focus. They can take the time and they can focus more on artistic things that they've already shot. Maybe they have a backlog of work that they shot. And for me, it's been amazing. I finished 2 little films, which I put out there. I finished a book that I was working on. I'm working on a couple of grants. I'm almost done with those. I've been working on tons of series, and I do go out and I do some shooting. Not as much as I'd like to. Of course, I could do the slide anytime I want, but I'm working hard, and maybe harder than ever.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic to hear, given the state of the world these days.
I do other things too. I mean, I've been involved with charities too. And when I lived in Long Island, I was on the board. I was on the board of directors of a food pantry, and I also volunteered there. And I did that for 8 years. So I'm very much into that, and I see the plight of people that they need help, and the people that I saw really genuinely really needed the help, and the people were broke, and there were people also who they couldn't work for one reason or another. It wasn't from being lazy. So I have a great deal of empathy for people. And once again, I think excuse me, the portraits that I do, sometimes, the people come off maybe a little crazy, but I am trying to show some humanity there.
Oh, I think you've been profoundly successful in doing that.
You got to remember, some people, they want to come off as over the top, and I'm happy to help them. I'm happy to help them out.
That's fantastic. Well, okay. This has been absolutely fascinating. I hope that the people listening are checking out your website, GaryBeeber.com. The slide was a wonderful introduction to your work, and I'm amazed by everything else I found back there. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, sir.
I just wanted to say thank you to Frames Magazine. I think they're really doing a great thing. It's really great that somebody out there is promoting photography. And I'm personally very happy to be a part of it. And I thank you all. And I thank you.
Well, and we thank you as well. Have a good afternoon.
Hey, you too. Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, I can imagine you would like to hear more about what we are currently working on. Later this year, we will be launching a quarterly printed photography magazine. It will be a beautifully designed, inspiring publication. I personally truly believe that excellent photography belongs on paper, hence the idea of frames. To find out more about frames and to join more than 14,000 photography enthusiasts who enjoy our weekly newsletter, go ahead and visit frames.photography. I would love to have you in our community. Thanks so much.